Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited and happy for the beautiful and very powerful opportunity to explore topics like Kundalini, Tantra, pranic work, energy work in general, and spiritual awakening with a very special guest and an expert in this field, which is Skeed. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, you have a profound background in energy work. Since like 25 years, you're doing this, you're studying this, like different wisdom traditions from all over the world, like combining them, like you say, connecting the dots. And what I really appreciate about you and the way you share your work is how you are like really not a gatekeeper, how you call it, but you really like let this wisdom and this knowledge and your experience just flow to people so generously and freely, which I appreciate a lot, and I think many people already benefited from in the past, and will benefit from in the future. And yeah, so I think your work is really, really relevant also in the context of the Kundalini energy becoming a little bit more prominent these days. Like, I'm a yoga teacher for quite some years now, and I remember like we were doing Kundalini work and nobody really got what it was because nobody really had the experience of like a rising Kundalini. And now it's a bit different because like there are more people offering like transmissions and activations, and we have like brands coming up like Carb Kundalini activation process, or also inner dance is becoming more prominent. So like this really, it gets more into the awareness of people. So I think it's important to have conversations about that. Yeah, I think you are a very good person to talk about this. And yeah, we can talk about your work and your offerings maybe later in the interview. There are opportunities to dive deeper with you. And yeah, for now, I'm really curious what brought you on this path, and why you are so motivated to share your wisdom and your knowledge with people.
Hi, and thank you for that glowing introduction. Okay, what brought me on the path? Well, I've never really had like you see in many like YouTube videos and things like that. People say, I had my awakening experience 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or it's just happened to me and I'm going through it now. And it's like for me, it's never been that way. It's just always been there. And it's just something that's so natural to me that I, for example, when I was at school, it's just something I accepted. And at school, I never got caught. I did things that I shouldn't have done, but I never got caught. Well, apart from, just to be very like honest, the only times I would get caught is if people told on me. But otherwise, I would never get caught because I would just listen to the energies, and they would tell me, okay, today you can go and do this, or you can go and do it there, but you can't go and do it there. And I'd listen. And it was, to the point, teenager, drinking, smoking. So there was a place that I would go quite regularly, and that was the cemetery. Now, whether the voices were the energies of the dead, or I don't draw conclusions on them. It's just the energies would talk to me. And there would be times that I would go in and they'd be like, absolutely fine, nothing, no problem. Other times I'd be like halfway through a beer and it's suddenly like, no, you've got to put your drink down, you've got to throw it away, you've got to leave the cemetery, but you've got to leave via this specific door. And so I would. And then when you walk round the other side, in goes the school prefect or the teacher to bust people. It's just something that's always been there. I mean, I have obviously had more sort of awakening experiences, but it's never been connected. It's just, and I mean, when I really started studying it was after one of those experiences. And I was 19, 18, 19. And it was at school. I'm dyslexic, I'm ADD. you can imagine what school life is like. I was what would in today's terms be called depressed. In those days, those things weren't looked at, especially in British public school. It's, oh, no, no, swept under the carpet. And anyway, I was in Cervinia, and it was like very powerful. I don't know whether you know the Matterhorn between Italy and Switzerland. That's where I was based.
Yeah.
And that is a very, very powerful mountain, like a natural pyramid. And it was just, I was there at the end of the season, just with a friend there, and it was instantly, there was like a connection, and 4 years of depression just lifted. And it was just like, how on earth has this just happened?
Wow.
I want answers. And yeah, that led me down a long path of study, yogic study, Taoist study. And Kundalini, people talk about Kundalini being yogic, being, we could say, Hindu. I mean, Hindu, again, what does Hindu mean? Hindu is not one religion. It's, a whole load of religions that got squashed together thanks to imperialism, basically. Um, but yet, it's everywhere. There's so much in the Taoist. Obviously, the Taoist techniques share Tantra with India. So there's many cross-cultural things there. And then if you go down to Philippines, Indonesia, you've got even more sharing and mixing of both cultures, along with the Islamic cultures as well. So you get this big mishmash of cultural mixing, and techniques get mixed, but there's so much more to discover in other places. South America, they have their own techniques. Europe, it sounds bizarre, but the European techniques, they don't exist. They do. It's just they've got hidden, and they've been hidden for what, basically since Roman Christianity. So it's harder to discover, but they are there. And who are the Druids? It says the Druids came up, the Celts. People think Celts are Irish and Scottish, but there is a lineage that says the Druids actually came from Egypt. They moved up via Portugal to Galicia in Spain. Galicia, they play the bagpipes. It's very Celtic, going through the Basque Country as well, and then made their way up into Ireland and Britain, Scotland. So it's like there are many, many traditions that hold this. Even in the African traditions, you'll find it. Aboriginal traditions, you'll find it. It's everywhere.
Sure. Yeah, it's really everywhere. Like it's funny once we start talking about it, there are like so many things popping up and so many connections. Like it really feels like this web of knowledge and wisdom, and basically probably just being human and exploring all this potential. Like yeah, it's very profound. Yeah, thank you for for that little excursus on the history. And I wonder, like personally, um, I got on the spiritual path, or like on the motivation to explore all these things a little bit different than you, because like I'm really on this healing path. Like I was really suffering, and I was just like looking for ways to heal or to feel whole, or however you want to call it. But I'm like kind of coming from this track. So I was exploring like healing modalities from different parts of the world, with the motivation to just like feel better. And I was working a lot with like shamans in the Amazonian forest. I was obviously doing my yoga stuff and everything. So I wonder, like, with the work that you're doing and with this approach to energy work, like, would you consider this like healing work, or how would you contextualize this like healing thing within what you are doing, and like how does it relate to the spiritual path and to the work that you're doing?
We have to be very careful with the word healing.
Yeah.
Why? Because there are certain powers that be that do not allow you to use that word. We're not going to go into conspiracy theories or anything like that. But, I mean, anyone who wants to test this, try and run an advert on Google with the word healing in it, not being a medical practitioner or a pharmaceutical company, or have empirical evidence to back up your statement.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be allowed to run it. So I'm not saying something fictional, and I understand there are very good reasons to have it. So when we say the word healing, we have to be very careful. There are practitioners of certain brands of energy work that have taken it very close to, for example, chiropractic work. And their systems have basically been outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we have to be very, very careful using the word healing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can it help people? Can it open people? Can does stress cause a vast majority of disease? Yes, we know this is being proven. This stress doesn't have to be current stress. It can be blocks that are stored that we call traumas.
Mm-hmm.
They are stored within the physical body, yet they are also stored within the energetic bodies. Can this line of work release those blocks? Ask around, see for yourself. It's very clear it can. Yeah. And I mean, even if we go to, the big people in this field, the people with major studies, Joe Dispenza, for example, he's got so much proof backing up his work. And he's not the only one. It's just the first name that came to the top of my head. So it is definitely a real thing. We have to also pay attention to what is useful for shifting us from a sympathetic nervous system to a parasympathetic nervous system. Again, not saying they're bad at all. Great, brilliant. They need to be out there and working. That is just letting the system relax. Now, anyone who's got ADD, anyone who's got ADHD knows exactly what I'm talking about, because given the culture and especially the education system that we have in the West, ADDers and ADHDers get stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. When an ADHD or an ADDer can move to the parasympathetic nervous system and stay there, it can be life-changing for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very powerful thing. However, it goes much, much, much deeper. It's that, can we call it healing? As I said, dangerous word. How many people have, whether they think there's, if you look at it from a negative point, it's sort of something's wrong, or whether you just look at it from a different perspective. I feel like I'm missing something. There is a void that I need to fill. And at the end of the day, if you think our culture is designed around filling that void with entertainment, with whatever. And so we don't actually address that, feel it, open up to it. And when we do, things change. It's a bit of a long-winded answer, but
It's a very beautiful answer. Thank you so much. Like, yeah, you like to go deep, so let's get to the point. Yeah, beautiful. Um, so we were talking, or you were sharing a little bit on the role of trauma, and in order not to like go too deep and into like the healing trauma, whatever narrative, just like let's refer to it as like energy blockages, which are also stored in the physical body, or which are like stored in any kind of body,
Mhm.
energetic or emotional or mental or physical. But I think it can be a good approach to work with like somatic therapies, for example, or just somatic approaches to release this kind of trauma. And I think you also like in your integral energy course or generally in your work, you also approach possibilities to work with the stored trauma in the body, if I got it right.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would like to know like which practices are the ones, like how do you use them, like just from your personal perspective, like how do you use this kind of work to support like the flow of energy in the body, and like how do you integrate it to your energy work?
Okay, so somatic work for me is sort of step one. It's the sort of the release phase. Once you've sort of realized there's something missing, that's sort of step one. I wouldn't call that an awakening. It's just you realize something's off. Step two would be accepting that and looking for answers. So then, if you go down the journey, depending on how you've gone down it, because there are many, many ways to go down this road. It's not, I mean, the typical thing of branding these days, it's like, I know the secrets and these days, and it's gone on for a long time. It's, I know this, you've got to go this way, and it's only this. And many people go down the road. And don't get me wrong, they can be very useful and they can take you all the way down. However, depending where you come from, depending on the amount of blocks you have, somatic work is a great first step to releasing the blocks you have built up over your lifetime. From there, it's then about understanding what your thoughts are. It sounds so simple, but what are your thoughts? If you think about it, people talk about artificial intelligence, and some people say what we do and what artificial intelligence does is completely different. From a mental perspective, the mind, the programmed mind, is it that much different? Have we just been collecting data that someone worked out? I can't remember how many bytes per second we process of data. From the bird flying over to the advert you see in the background that you don't register on the bus station. And Darren Brown has done amazing studies with this stuff.
Mhm.
And it just comes in. And from a very young age, you're told, this is right, this is wrong, do this, do that. Everything you have, everything you think comes from the external. You have processed it, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, creating beliefs, creating identity. And no one says otherwise, so we just assume our thoughts are our thoughts. Who says your thoughts are your thoughts?
Mhm.
If they've all come from the external, how much are they your own? It can be a tricky one to process, even to the point of your ego. Your ego, yes, your ego is there to keep you safe. It's not your enemy. Your shadows are there to keep you safe. They are not your enemy. Again, a lot of people try to fight them off. The more you fight them, the more they hold on because they're trying to protect you.
Mhm.
It's about accepting them, integrating them, understanding that they are there to protect you so you can step out of that and see more.
Yeah. This is such an important thing that I just recently understood a bit more, because I had this like experience where I could see like my own prison from the outside, and I realized like, wow, I'm spending my whole life in this prison. And I was just like exploring, like, what is this prison? It's like my belief system, it's my energy, it's how it manifests in my body and in my reality. Like these things, they become really solid. Like it will become like a real prison if you don't know your way out. And it's like really, it's very it's a big challenge to liberate yourself from that. And I think it's also like a work that we really have to do. Like we have to find this strength and the motivation within ourselves to really like do it. And I think it's a great study to understand like, okay, how I'm like trapped here. I feel like I really cannot move. How do I start now? Like, and I think like just like finding the energy to somehow start and just like kind of believing in yourself or whatever, like however you start doing that, like everything that starts liberating you, I think is a very profound and important step that will lead us on the path of actual potential, like of actually being alive and not trapped somewhere. And yeah, you were mentioning a little bit of like the role of the mind and the mindset aspect, and I know you also addressed this like in some of your programs, and it's like it's a very important piece of the puzzle, maybe the most important. I don't know. That would be my question. Like, how does this energy work, which is like so is it more than the mind or is the mind more than this? Like somehow I wonder sometimes because there are modalities which only work with belief systems and not with this kind of profound energies that you are working with. So how does that interconnect? Like what's your take on that?
You have the mental body, you have the physical body, you have the emotional body. Those make up the energetic body in very simplistic terms. If you work, and this is a big mistake that many people, so a lot of people that come to me have played with energy. And when I say played with it, I mean on the point of playing with matches. Be careful, you might get burnt. Yeah.
Okay.
If you do not work, and it doesn't have to be complex, none of this has to be over intellectualized, and the simplest answers are the most profound answers. It takes some people time to realize that. But if you start working, so if we see these as sort of two, they're not opposites, they're not dualistic, they're symbiotic, they work together. Yeah. So if you start working your energy, but yet you don't work the mind, as we said, the ego is here to protect you. So if you start opening this, guess what's going to happen? This protection is going to fight back, saying, hey, what's going on? Then this can start causing dark night of the soul, anxiety, depression. And the more you push this, the more this is going to kick in.
Okay.
So we have to allow this to open so this can flow freely. So it is very important we work both sides. That doesn't mean we have to get PhDs in psychology or yoga or philosophy to be able to do it. It can be a very, very simple process once we realize it.
That explains a lot. Thank you so much. Really nice. And yeah, maybe now that we touched on it, like maybe we can share a little bit more. You could share a little bit more on this, like possible risks on the path, like Kundalini Syndrome or Dark Night of the Soul, and these things. Like how, like what's your take on that? Like how dangerous do you think they are, and what's the role in like really finding like proper support when you're like feeling okay, there is something happening, and I feel it could be related to these kind of energies.
Okay, so you have Dark Night of the Soul, which is just your ego trying to protect you, fighting back. It can feel like depression. It can feel like a bit like anxiety. Personally, that one I don't see as that big a deal. You just need to, if that starts happening to you, find someone to help you. It's really not difficult to get through. Kundalini Syndrome. Now, some people confuse Dark Night of the Soul and Kundalini Syndrome. They have nothing to do with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Kundalini Syndrome, by the Western psychiatrists and psychologists, has been, medical doctors, has been misdiagnosed as bipolar. It is a serious condition. Don't get me wrong, I am not saying all people who suffer from bipolar have Kundalini Syndrome. I'm saying Kundalini Syndrome is misdiagnosed as bipolar. There have been people that have received that diagnosis, they figured out that it's incorrect, and they have got through it and healed themselves from it. I say healed, corrected the problem. To describe Kundalini Syndrome, the way I describe it is the initial stage is when Superman gets his powers. Yeah. When Superman gets his powers, it's, for a more real interpretation, is the whole brain lights up. The whole brain becomes very, very sensitive to everything. You can hear more clearly, you can see more clearly. Everything is, all of your senses are heightened. And a lot of people that have had very bad experiences with this, it tends to go in line with, we can say plant medicine, we can say drugs. And I say it like that because a lot of people who get to that stage aren't taking it in a ceremonial, controlled environment. They are going to festivals, they are taking these things, there's lots of music around, they get a rising, their neurons, their brain is being overstimulated in an environment, they're literally on something, they cannot turn it off until the drug runs out. They're in this environment, highly stimulated, loud music, lots of people, Okay, festivals are chilled, but they're stressful. It can be positive stress, but it's still stressful.
Sure.
In that state, you are going to get to a state, for a lot of people, where the brain's just going to go, yeah, Kundalini Syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very serious thing. We have other things that go on with energy work, which are not Dark Night of the Soul, and they are not Kundalini Syndrome. Mopai talks about this. If you play with what they call the fire energy system, which we could call the electrical energy system, you can raise that energy and you can literally energetically burn yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had clients come to me saying, every time I sort of connect to the energy, I am just in pain. I'm suffering. It's my stomach, it's my liver, it's my head, it's my... Yeah. And so they have literally burnt their energy by using one of the two energies, only the energetical, only the electrical. The other is the magnetical, biomagnets, electromagnets, energy. It works the same way. Other people have pushed the magnetical, the yin energy, too far. And that one, very typically, it goes up and it gets stuck in the heart or it gets stuck in the head. And it's like, I just feel like I've got this brain fog the whole time and I can't think straight and I can't. Yeah. Because they've played with the magnetical energy, they haven't learned how to help it flow through the body and it's got stuck.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Dark Night of the Soul, although that one could feel very similar to it. And it's not Kundalini Syndrome. How do we avoid these things? Lots of research. Do not listen to just, myself included, do not listen to just one person. Go do your independent research. Study, read different cultures, different texts, because you might get in that position. Someone says, I use this to help me, and it doesn't help you. Okay, what do you do now? You need to find, we are each unique and individual due to our experiences. So we have to find, it's much like traditional Chinese medicine. You have to find that unique path for you, that balance to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you get stuck there. When it comes to Kundalini and Kundalini awakening, if you read, it's not what I say, but if you read like texts and manuscripts and things, they say the safest way to raise your Kundalini is with an energy master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why? Because they've been through it. They can guide you. Now, yes, I also know there is this thing in certain cultures that it's like, no, you shouldn't do this thing. This is a gift of God, and if it rises by itself, then it's meant to be, and that's it. It's like, yeah, I look at that as, okay, so I shouldn't learn to drive a car before I drive a car.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense. You're more likely to get into problems doing it that way.
Yeah.
Can you do these things without an energy master, without a teacher? Yes, of course you can. It's going to take you a lot longer. You're going to have to do a lot more research. And on the flip side, you might go to one person and you might find that person can manipulate energies, but they don't actually have control. They have on-off switches, and they just push, and they just push, and they just push, and they actually cause you to have a dark night of the soul experience, or worse. Yeah. I know this goes on. I have people coming from other schools to me saying, I don't know what's going on, help, or I've done Kundalini activation courses. I did them a couple of years ago, and now I don't know what's going on. Something's going on. I'm like, it's because your Kundalini is finally starting to kick in and rise. We have to understand Kundalini activation energies are not Kundalini energy.
Mm-hmm.
The energy, and this is why you can awaken it yourself, because the Kundalini activation energies are the sacred sexual energy and the pranic energies. You can use those to awaken your Kundalini, or at least to create a rising. They are the activation energies. Then you have Kundalini energy, which traditionally is the energy master, guru, whatever school you come from, whatever name you give them. And they can help you go through a transition, which, again, if we go to the Hindu schools, traditionally that is called Shaktipat.
Mm-hmm.
And that is different because to be able to give Shaktipat, you have to have had your Kundalini awakened so you can then pass it to the other person.
Yeah.
You know? There are schools that say only gurus should hold this. Okay. Why? Isn't that protectionism? Protectionism can be a good thing because it stops the other thing going on. But at the same time, there are many people, especially today, there are many people, highly sensitive people, very powerful people energetically. If they had to all find a technically bona fide guru, and one thing that I am completely against, putting people on a pedestal, having them dress up in a uniform, surrounding themselves with a community of devoted followers. It's like, no. If you
Yeah.
study Taoism, the Taoist monk living in the temple in the Himalayas is not a true Taoist. The true Taoist does not move to the mountains and live in a temple. They do not separate themselves from the world. Yeah, so those monks know what I'm talking about, so they're not going to be offended by it. They made a choice that they want to do that, fine. But the true Taoist stays connected on the path, living in society.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is like so important that you address this, because like this was something on my path that I also like have experience with and also stumbled upon a little bit. This like necessity to work with a master. Also, like I really wanted to work with a master because I felt like there is stuff going on and I really just like I need support and I have questions, and obviously I look and I go to people who can support me on this path. And as a spiritual seeker, I think sometimes it's there is the possibility that we put ourselves in a little bit of a vulnerable position, because like we just really seek for answers and we don't know what's going on, and so we seek out for people who know what's going on. So there is like sometimes, if we are not aware of it, like this pedestal thing can happen very easily. Also, if you work with people who do a lot of energy work, I mean, this is a form of power also. And so, like, when we are like in this moment where we really feel, okay, we need the support of a master, like, what do you think we should look out for to kind of like, what are red flags? Like you mentioned some of them already, but maybe what are like also indicators that people are doing authentic work? Is there something that you feel you can share about that?
If you look at martial arts, you go and find a true martial artist, the masters. You don't know who they are. You walk past them in the street. They don't step above. If anything, they hide in the shadows. The first master I worked with, I went and I studied Raja Yoga. Now, Raja Yoga, people think of yoga and they think of Hatha Yoga, calisthenics. Raja Yoga is mental yoga. It's mind yoga. And following the path, following my path, I did not go to India, to an ashram for 3 months and claimed I was there for longer. And I didn't go there for 5 years either. I went down the street to my local yoga center. There was this guy, he must have been then about 60, Argentinian, not Indian, Argentinian. But he just had this presence about him. Just amazing. And the more got to know him, I'm just like, I've got to study with you. And so I studied with him. And the things he could do, the medical techniques, Ayurvedic medicine, that he could do was absolutely amazing. He was just this regular guy. And one day I'm like, there's more to this guy. There's got to be more to this guy. And so I Googled him. It turns out that this regular guy walking down the street was actually one of the few true Yogacharyas of the planet. Now, for those that don't know what a Yogacharya is, you have a Swami, which a Swami basically means anyone who opens a yoga center, calls it an ashram, is automatically a Swami. When we say it very, very basically, you know. And then it's sort of, most people think above the Swami, you have the Guru. But you have between them the Yogacharya. The Yogacharya is a title you cannot give yourself. It is a title that must be bestowed upon you. And so he was one of the few Yogacharyas. he was, I can't remember which yoga association it is. I mean, if you Google it, it's the biggest yoga association on the planet. He had been, when I met him, president of, because they rotate the presidents, he had been president of this thing. Repeatedly, they kept asking him to come back and be president of the association. This guy was amazing. But he was just regular guy on the street. That's the type of person you're looking for. The one that doesn't try and put themselves above you. The ones that, again, unfortunately, especially in sort of like this new world coming out of, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but sort of like this Kundalini activation world, you find, unfortunately, when you start talking to people, spiritual ego, that they, not necessarily on purpose, it could just be through blind ignorance, they think their system is the best, or their system is the original. You're very much mistaken if you think their system is the original. The Balinese traditional healers have been doing this for centuries. It's nothing new. But they have this spiritual ego that theirs is special, they're above, and you've got to be careful with them. So how do you find these people? And how do you look for the warning signs? Talk to them. See what they say. Don't go with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever. Listen to what they say. Choose to believe them and lap it all up. Question it. I mean, I've been to retreats and things where that goes on. And you get people that they are very good at this. They over-intellectualize things. They use big words to make them seem more important. It's something that goes on in our world. It's the same thing as you're only someone once you've written a book. My bestseller. Oh, therefore I must be someone. Well, a bestseller means, these days, if you've written 2 books, the one that sold more is your bestseller. It used to mean something else. Yeah. That's how people use it these days. So yes, gain a basic knowledge of these things before you go and do them. People who sell things as experiences, like attraction rides, going to an amusement park, yeah, you got to be suspicious of that. It can be sold as that. Whether it's Kundalini activation or learn how to have an energy orgasm. I have sessions where I teach people how to have energy orgasms. Yes, I do that. But because I've studied it, it's not just I've learned this technique and I'm going to do it and woohoo. Yeah. And it can be a very fun experience. But it's not about the fun experience.
Yeah.
Sacred sexual energy is it's not as powerful as Kundalini, but it is a very powerful healing energy.
Yeah. So what do you feel about the other extreme? You were like talking now about people who are like a little bit more like on the salesy experience side, but then there are also like guru people who really ask you to not have contact to your family anymore, to give like where it's important to have like a spiritual name and like proper initiations. How do you feel about this side of the spectrum?
No.
Okay.
Simple as that. It's like, why? Okay, if you have a very unstable family environment, if you have a very unhealthy group of friends, but I'm not talking extreme. I'm talking that a psychologist is going to say to you, they're not going to say to you, leave your family. leave your friends. They might suggest to you, perhaps you might want to start trying a different activity, make some new friends. Yeah, okay, you're in an unhealthy environment, find a more healthy one.
Mm-hmm.
But to break contact, they're telling you to. One thing is you have an unhealthy relationship and you say, I don't want contact with you. Okay, great. But for someone to tell you to do that, no.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Because like it's common practice sometimes when you go to like spiritual groups, and then there are like fine lines between like cult stuff and everything. It's a thing actually, unfortunately. So like I very much appreciate to have this conversation also and to touch on it. However, this is like a huge topic in itself, and I really would like to shift the energy a little bit more to like the positive side. And so I'm really curious, like, what would you say is like, can people take away from working with the different energies you're working with the sacred sexual tantric energies, with the prana, with the Kundalini energy? Like, what are the benefits that people have from doing this work? What do you experience? What are your benefits? What are the benefits of the people you are working with?
Okay, so prana. We can call it prana, we can call it chi. Yep, same thing. And one of the things I just want to sort of point out here, someone who has a strong, we've got to be careful with Reiki, because people talk about lineages and they say, oh, well, I'm from this lineage. And it's like, okay, great. But if you have one weak link in the chain, and it might be someone you don't know, that lineage is broken. You can see, I mean, Reiki, it's learn, free on YouTube, learn from Udemy for 10 euros or $10. I'm not saying they're necessarily bad. I'm just saying when it does that type of thing, how powerful is the activation going to be? How powerful are they? You can see people on social media. They claim to do Reiki and they're waving their hands in front of the screen. Can you actually feel anything? Because some of them you can. Some of them are very good and you can really feel it. And others, they're just waving their hands in front of the screen. So you got to be careful of who you go to. I've lost my track of thought. What was the question?
Actually, actually about the benefits that people can get
Okay, so
from doing this kind of
yeah.
work.
So people say, for example, Kundalini activation, people move a lot. And in Reiki, people don't move.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone who's watching this, who does Reiki and they have cultivated the energy, instead of just holding your hands over your client, don't try this with a client, try it with a friend with their permission. Start moving your hands. See what happens. See whether they move. Because Kundalini activation energy, people move, and in Reiki, they don't. Why? Because you're not moving the energy. It's very, very easy to make people move with pranic energy. Pranic energy is connecting to the first layer, the etheric body, first layer outside the physical body. And if you move the energy, they are going to move. Obviously, with that said, some people move more than others. Some people will take many sessions to start to move. Others will move on their first session. It does depend. Pranic energy works on the etheric level, which obviously the etheric level it's not just a layer outside you, it also is within the physical body. Prana works there. So it can heal. Again, that word. Sanitize. it can clear blocks.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very powerful. It can, even to the point of, I said, those people that may have been playing with the energies, the magnetical energy, the electric energy, and had their internal energies burnt. Prana and chi, same thing, but they can be very healing, especially if you're using, well, If someone's been burnt, then obviously you're going to be using the magnetical energy and vice versa. Unless it's a block, then you might be using it, the same one, to clear it. But it is very powerful, and that's what it's for. You know, the tantric energy, it's not a different type of energy. It is the same energy. So they sort of explain this in yoga. So you have prana with a capital P, and then you have the 5 pranas.
Mm-hmm.
The way they explain it, it's like, yeah, okay, I get what you mean, but it's not quite like that. So the way I like to explain it is you have prana with a capital P, which is white light. You know? When white light goes through a prism, it splits into a rainbow. Now, I'm not saying that each energy has a color of a rainbow. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about the misconception. Like everyone these days talks about the chakras of the rainbows, the colors of the rainbow, upside down.
Yeah.
Absolute rubbish. Do your research on it. That comes from the 1970s when one guy was trying to teach people about the chakras, and he used the colors of the rainbow to make it more easy to understand. It stuck. And so
Mm-hmm.
now each color happens to coincide with the colors of the rainbow. But if you think about it, the distance between each chakra is different. It just makes no sense that it's those colors if you think about it.
Yeah, sure. There are also different colors. Like people use different colors, and it gets confusing if you study it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in yoga, really, there's only one yogic system that's older that gave specific colors. For me, the colors that I personally think work best are, again, going more to the Taoism, to the colors of the Dakini. They work very well. People get confused because there are 8 Dakinis, 7 chakras, possibly. But yeah. Anyway, getting back to where we were. So you have this white light that is split by a prism into
Mm-hmm.
different, let's not call them colors, let's call them frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it hits a level of our energy body, and it gets split. So one of those energies will be prana or chi. Another of those frequencies can be what we call the tantric or the sacred sexual energy. This can be cultivated, arousal. However, there is another layer to this, which what the Taoists call Jing. It is the creative energy. It is the energy that is created within the testes, within the ovaries. Yep. One thing I always ask about that is, so they say your Jing as you get older decreases.
Mm-hmm.
However, if that is to do with sexual energy, how come there are certain people that their sexual magnetism increases as they get older? People talk about it very commonly with actors, with actresses. It's they just have this magnetism as they get older. We're not necessarily talking about sexual arousal, but we are talking about sexual attraction. So if it diminishes, why does that happen? Now, of course, if we don't cultivate it, it will diminish, yes. However, if we cultivate that, just like any muscle, if you cultivate it and you work it, it grows. Perhaps the older you get, the longer it takes, the more practice you have to put into it, just like going to the gym. But then you look at these 80-year-olds that go to the gym and they're, completely in their minds, they're completely fit, they're completely healthy compared to the geriatric in the old age homes that have not worked this and they've carried the stress of their lives, and
Sure.
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
If you cultivate it, you don't. So then this sacred sexual energy is a frequency that is taken through these creation energies, but also through manipulating it. We can compare it to sexual arousal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual arousal. It is just a creation energy, because literally you take eggs, you take sperm. They are the ingredients you need for the spark to create life. Same as in a plant with the flower. Yeah. It is a very powerful energy. That energy, so we have chi, we have prana that can travel through all the meridians.
Mm-hmm.
We have tantra that tends to stick to 2 of the meridians, nadis, channels. That is the back channel, the Sushumna, and this is why many people have confused it with Kundalini energy, because it travels through the same channel. However, it can also travel up the front channel.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck trying to find yogic texts talking about the front channel. They do exist, but they're not easy to find. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Ren Mai, Du Mai, they're very clearly talked about in Taoism. And so this sexual energy can travel up the front channel as well. And it is a very powerful, it is a very magnetic energy. People talk about masculine energy and feminine energy. For me, I think this is a huge mistake. Because as soon as we talk about them as being masculine and feminine, 2,000 years of cultural programming comes into play. If we talk about Shakti and Shiva, Shiva is not masculine energy. Shiva is consciousness. Shakti is energy. Consciousness is not masculine. Energy is not feminine. Yeah. Consciousness and energy, again, they have a symbiotic relationship. They are not poles, they are not dualistic, they are symbiotic. Yeah. They work together. And so we have the front channel and we have the back channel. This energy, this tantric energy, can flow through both. It can flow just as in the microcosmic orbit in Taoism. It can flow forwards, it can flow backwards. It can be electrical, it can be magnetical. Ida Pingala. Electrical, magnetical. When combined correctly in balance, are very safe and very stable. When worked only one, can cause problems. Yep. That sort of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel you, you could go on. If I ask you about the Kundalini now, we will like talk here forever. But I think you really answered my question in the sense of like, I was asking you about the benefits and just like understand like the cultivation, like the importance of the cultivation of the energy. Like, this is really something that I appreciate a lot, and why I also like consider diving deeper into this. Also, like working with you on your course, on the upcoming course, the Integral Energy course, because I really feel like this is what we're gonna do. Like understanding the whole thing, but also practicing it and finding this motivation to understand like why this is important and how we can use this kind of work to support our own path to just become like powerful, self-leading, sovereign beings
Okay.
in our lives. And
So
yeah, I mean this. Yeah.
okay, so why follow the path? Why do this? Is this about healing, to use that word? No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step on the ladder. We can talk about enlightenment. We can talk about the rainbow body. We can talk about, there are many different words we can use. It's about feeling, for the most part of the Western ideology, It is about being able to feel home again.
Mm.
Within your body, physical body, energetical body. Once you feel at home within yourself, if you then wish to take the path further, it is open to you. If you just wish to feel at home and whole, that's up to you. Everyone is on their own path. That's what it's about.
That's so beautiful. This feeling of being home, it's like, wow, I feel like when we have these glimpses, or when I had these glimpses of really feeling like home, I was like, wow, I'm not looking for anything anymore. This is also something that I heard you mention before. Like, it's just like, well, like, why doing all that stuff? Like, really, when you just can be really, really present and just be in your body, be in your bodies, just be there, home. It's
And
very
for some
beautiful.
people, that is very scary because it's like, if I reach that, we are programmed to be about goals. Our whole culture is based around goals. But the problem is, once you reach your goal, what do you do next? What's the next thing? And so if you say, but what happens once I get home, once I feel at home, what do I do then? You have to understand there is only one destination of this particular life you are living. That's death. That's the only destination there is.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the goals, start living. When you feel at home in your body, everything becomes easier, everything becomes effortless, and you can just stop worrying about the goals, stop trying to get to the next thing, and start living.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you. I feel this also really drives this conversation home, actually. Very, very, very beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your, yeah, wisdom and what you would like to share, your motivation and like doing this work and all the gifts that you bring. Very beautiful. Is there something that you want to share with our viewers for now? Like maybe opportunities to dive deeper into this work, or just some final closing words?
Yeah, I mean, for people that want to look more into this, I would say step one, do your own independent research. That can include my YouTube channel, the the Awakening Energy by Skeed.
Very much recommended. I'll definitely link that.
If you like what you see and you want to go deeper, then theawakenenergy.com. I have private sessions, I have group sessions, I have trainings. The way I go about the training, so I have for people who want to go do short, sharp trainings, I have individual trainings in layers. For people that want to do more self-study, I have the Integral Energy Program, which is a 52-week program. So it's self-study, but yet we meet every 2 weeks to discuss things, Q&A, have energy sessions, activations. Then we have an intensive week, which is where we really go into the awakening of the Kundalini, connecting with the light body. And then obviously there's further study after that. But I also have, so for people that don't want to do it that way and they prefer to study with me in person, you can study that. It gets a bit weird, but you can study that in person if you're a private person, because I know there are people who are private people and do not want to do this in groups for many different reasons. So I also offer that program with mentorship so you can do it privately. But then I also have an 8-week program that we study the material of the 52-week program. However, we do it all live, we do it online with homework each week to practice different techniques, to learn, to build, to then at the end of the 8 weeks, get ready to go for the awakening of the energy.
Yeah, beautiful. And in case you happen to see that kind of real time, like this is it October yet? No, it's end of September 2024. So there is one starting in the end of October
Yes.
2024. But you also do this like ongoing. Like it will not be the last opportunity. There will be many more for sure. But just if you happen to see this now, like that would be maybe a very nice consideration.
People are interested, then it's there. Yeah, check out the
Yeah.
website. All the information's there.
Beautiful. So I think everybody should have the information they need for now. This is what I hope for. And yeah, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Like I was learning so much during this conversation. So thank you for that. You're really like a very, very good teacher. So yeah, thank you. And
Thank you.
I hope to see you very soon. Maybe we can do a follow up after I finish the, the 8 weeks intensive or something.
And I'll be interviewing you to see.
Yeah, yeah. Just to show authentically the progress of what can happen. I'm curious. So yeah, for now. For now, thank you. And I wish you a very beautiful day. Thank you to everybody watching until now. Like thank you for your interest. And yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye bye.